Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for spending your valuable time with the Adapt 2030 channel. 13 items you might want to buy now. They're forecasting, lean on supplies, looking at African food security. Can you pinpoint the areas first where there'll be civil unrest with 30% plus food inflation? Because South Africa going 9 hours a day without power, one of the most developed economies in Africa. Maybe our past is not as it seems in 1913. And I'm going to start you right off here. Herbs you can grow in water all year long. If you had a row of glasses right along your windowsill, you could grow multiples of these and always have access to taste additions for your food so you don't get bored eating the same thing all the time. Speaking of which, this is the new list that came out. 13 foods that have already been broadcast are going to be very short, very lean in supply. Some call that a shortage. So let's roll down the list and see what there is. Beef, okay. Apparently 5.6% less of people will consume beef than in 2022. Lettuce. Well, they're already having lettuce shortages. Tomato, cucumber, etc. across the UK. Limit 2 tomatoes per purchase. Beer. Oh, that makes sense. The barley shortages are starting to sweep the planet. And lack of canning. There's a lot of things that go into the process for beer. Champagne. It can only be in a very, very certain region, which is drastically affected. It looks like 25% down in the region there. Oranges. Well, the United States has had an incredible hurricane season that has swept Florida multiple times, almost as if they're guided into that state. Anyway, the orange and citrus industry hit hard during the hurricanes of 2022. Cooking oils, that'll be one to stock up on. I would avoid the canola oil if you could. Doesn't really store that long. Butter, another thing, dairy-based, prices up on this. 10% plus through the year, but I think it's a little higher myself. Corn and corn-based products. So look for that sweet corn as well. We're going to be going up in price once we enter into the summer months here. Eggs. Oh, how many times have we heard about eggs? Prices come down on the wholesale level, but if there are any other disruptions, going to go right back up again. How many millions of birds have been dispatched? And tomatoes. That's already happening across the UK and different parts in Europe, so it wouldn't be too long until it sweeps upon our shores. You might want to stock up and get seeds for those that you can grow by yourself. And who knows, you might be able to trade that for something else down the way. And for myself, I'm really interested in food insecurity in Africa because these lesser developed nations are going to be the ones that show unrest first as food prices get so expensive that people are going to be pinched against the wall. We've seen food prices in Pakistan, 55% of all the monthly earnings are just going to food. And through history, these grand solar minimums and cycles of change on the 2,000-year interval have always disrupted society. Based on the inavailability to plant, harvest in the same calendar months, then there are shortages, and hungry people, well, they want change. Low levels of collagen show up in more ways than one, although sagging skin and wrinkles are the most common that come to mind. It's well known that collagen levels can decrease by up to a shocking 10% every decade after the age of 30. One of the quickest ways to help combat low levels of collagen is to supplement a high-quality collagen supplement, and there may not be a better choice than Health with Adapt2030.com. Look and feel your best this upcoming spring and summer season. Take 51% off your order. It includes some free bonuses, free VIP health coaching before the half-off sale ends. Go to healthwithadapt2030.com. Remember, you have 60 days to change your mind if you do. That link's in the description box below. That's healthwithadapt2030.com. And now on with the video. So it all relies on stability, and I'm looking at South Africa as a bedrock of stability. One of the more developed economies across southern Africa, if not the biggest that you see right here on this part of the map. And now they're heading into massive electrical shortages. So what about places like Ethiopia that didn't have much going on except for the new Renaissance Dam that's been built there. South Sudan, these places that don't have a lot of electricity are really starting to get into some hyperinflationary or currency difficulties in addition to price rises. Nigeria, perfect example there. But overall, the IPC map, the acute food insecurity, let me zoom in on that, just Africa here. The legend is on the right, top right. The darker the red or getting into the brick color, that is extreme food insecurity. Borderline famine. So as we look through, not too bad yet, but as these prices rise and electricity becomes less and less available, then what happens? Because South Africans, they're down 9 hours a day, down. Ginormous blackouts, as it's been called. Stage 7. It only goes to stage 8, and then it's full blackout. So the way to read this chart, and if you ever do look when the electrical shortage lessen through the country, stage 1, they're going to shed 1,000 megawatts. And the higher you go up the chart, that's how many megawatts are being shed. So imagine if you took 7,000 megawatts out of your state. How do you think that would disrupt statewide factory production or whatever types of production in homes that would be? And now do it for a country. The thing is, South Africa was such the stable, and now record rationing leading severe blow to Africa's most industrialized economy, well, one of them. You can almost see that pendulum swing up, and can it be forecast out? Lack of electricity and rising food prices will lead to the first of these nations with the civil unrest, and then we can get a good gauge on timelines where it's going to move, and we can get some factors to plug into an equation. Food security, inflation, where it's purple, would be the countries that I'm referencing. But before we get there, let's jump up to the monthly report on food price trends. That's Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO, February 10th update. We're going to jump down West Africa here. Prices of millet and sorghum in Mali. Now, you see that it did drop off after the apex highs, but still, compared to 1 year ago in, let's say, January, February of 2022, it's still above that by a good 30%. And also the price of millet and sorghum in Burkina Faso, same thing. If we go back 1 year, a lot of those prices are still elevated for the basic daily staples. And you see this anomaly here, this millet and sorghum in Chad, two anomalies actually. The very steep spike up and down, looks like insider trading there for the millet, and then the dropout in sorghum price and the sudden increase again. Those two things played off of each other. Cereals in Senegal, starting to see the upward trend in these prices now. Ghana, almost looking like the Loch Ness Monster, which we've seen it again and again and again and again in 2021 and 22. Southern Africa, maize, corn, prices up and up. Retail prices of flour, corn flour in Angola. That line speaks for itself. Botswana, up and up. Eswatini, that is absolutely the Loch Ness Monster right there. Namibia up, Zambia up. And this is why I'm saying, once these prices get up in all the nations, you're going to watch an entire continent move in unison as a school of fish. We're going to move over to East Africa. South Sudan, those prices are up. Prices in 2022 are still lower than the averages that we're seeing in 2023. Ethiopia still continuing up, but Uganda crashing down on all the prices there, but still well above the January, February of 2022. This will give you a real good indication on how this food price is going to affect societies, and I mean all of them eventually. We're in all an interconnected world. The atmospheric patterns are across the planet, jet streams, cloud cells across the world move around the world. So if you might think you're insulated from this, you're not. It's either a once in a 400 year or once in a 2,000 year cycle that's repeating right now. The onset was around 2020, a few years back. Why do you think things are so in chaos at the moment? Perhaps to distract you from the food price increases. So as you look through Africa, and this is just one case study of one continent, there's going to be a lot of solutions that will be needed. Again, the price is going to lead to the unrest. So you can start to see what that tip and that rollover point will be, because that can be used across many other nations. Once you get a mechanics to this, the cause, the effect, what is it that the price point is pretty much every time you see that going to tip it. Just the beginning. We're going to still ride through this 2024, 2025. Shortages are already in the UK, rationing there. So you've already seen it move from just Africa or some areas in the Middle East, a spot or two in South America, into the UK. That's a huge jump. And this is where I found that food inflation chart that shows you the different colors. So the way I would read this chart is green is stability. Yellow, green, more stable than anything else in the region. Once you get into the purple, though, that's the danger zone. The reds are sort of moving that direction. You have to see on the yearly totals, are they dropping a little bit, or is it just a continuous upward trend until it turns purple? But right now, what you would gauge is Ethiopia, for example. They were running, 40+% on the food inflation. It's dropped back a little bit, but then it's starting to trend back up again. And Rwanda in the 59% food inflation year over year. That's a lot. That's pushing people over the edge. So as we move through the rest of the PDF here, you'll start to see right away Benin would be a country where I would say that looks really safe in terms of food inflation. And that would be one of the last countries that would tip into civil unrest, and their food inflation is declining. And the fifth entry from the bottom, Ghana. This is a perfect example. You'll see where it's moved from the red into the purple. Haiti also, although that's not in Africa, but you get the idea of how it transits from food inflation continuing up into now it's going to agitate people. And as we continue down the list, I know it's not in Africa, but Laos is another one that has transited from 5% food inflation up to 40+% in just a single year. These are the kind of areas that are going to flare off first. That would be an Asian, smaller nation, less developed economy that's also going to show signs. Purple is going to be the first to start to see things happen where people get really angry because the food and the energy prices are increasing. Sri Lanka, it's come back down from the 80% inflation. And if you see the downtrend where it goes from purple to red and red to green, that is a decreasing flare situation. But Zimbabwe sitting up there at the 376%. And Zimbabwe, I traveled back there early 1990s, loved it. Absolutely stunning, amazing, mind-blowing, just everything you can think, and just the most magical adventure of literally being lost in time and seeing the best of our planet in terms of wildlife and more ancient history that might have been forgotten, scrubbed, or lost. The exchange rate back then was 10 Zim to $1. 10 Zimbabwe dollar was $1 US when I traveled there. That'll give you an indication of how long ago it was. Unless the history that we've been told isn't exactly as it is, and we drop back to 1913, right out of the Philadelphia newspaper, showing us airship raid at night from a spectator's viewpoint. That is not any kind of things that I remember from 1913. That's ahead of us in the Jetsons. That's free power, and that's how we get through this. I do thank you for watching. I hope you got something out of the video. It does seem that the food unrest is going to start right about now. It's very visible, and you can start to see it across the landscape of the entire planet. Now we're looking at the southern hemisphere. The crop loss is down there. Once those get and hit into the books, when they try to take it into the silos and they really get some numbers out of that, it's going to spook the markets. You're going to watch them take off, because once we get into the northern hemisphere planting and they realize there's not a lot of places we could plant that we did last year, that's just going to make it move forward. Now again, it's all about getting onto the digital rationing cards. That's the next step, movement forward. You already know where it's going. So it's going to be easier to see how you're going to be pushed through the cattle corral to get you there. And Ransom, Godwin, and myself talk about this every Thursday night, 10 p.m. to midnight on the Mini Ice Age Conversations podcast YouTube channel. Join us there. comment box, people chatting, like minds, compare and share ideas. And with planting season upon us, TrueLeafMarket.com, Heirloom and organic seeds for any grow zone on the planet. Every purchase helps keep the Adapt 2030 channel on air. All those links are in the description box below, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.